So I finally got the dial indicator and mounting tool. Wheel on there. We put the magnetic base on the flywheel back here, and then mounted this so that the end of the plunger gauge is riding on the inside lip of this bell housing. So it's just riding on that. I had my wife help me spin the engine around as I took the measurements here. There's a couple things you want to do. One is to get your actual tolerance there, and that was right here. So I did this second, but I'll explain why here in a second. So I found one video that talked about your direction, which was kind of cool. So you have your 12, 6, 3, and 9. And if you take a measurement at each of those and then you subtract, so the smaller number from the larger number, -7 minus 0 is -7, -7 minus this was +1 was -6. So that tells you your, and these are 007, that's 001, etc. So that tells you your direction that you're kind of gonna find the top, the high number and the low number. So that's how I got this direction here. So you'll see, found my low number here, zeroed it out at 180 degrees, that's my high number. So 001, or 0, 1, and 0 divided by 2, you get 005. I'm within tolerance. I'm going to send that number to Silver Sport, and we're in good shape. But just these kind of helped me get this direction to make sure that I knew where the low and high numbers would be. All those instructions are obviously in there. There's some videos that are probably better at explaining this than what I'm telling you, but it's just kind of how I did it. All right, now that we got the runout measurement, I'm gonna get the flywheel installed, putting a little of the blue thread locker on, putting these bolts on, 85 foot-pounds of torque. So as I tighten those flywheel bolts down, I need to keep the engine from spinning. Just popped on a breaker bar on there that put it up against the ground, and that should keep it from spinning. And let's go ahead and torque those down in the star pattern to 85 foot-pounds. Because I don't trust myself, I go through them one more time. Alright, flywheel's on. Now with those on, just want to hit this with a little brake cleaner. Or that. I usually use a clean shop towels to wipe it off as well. I know brake cleaner dries quick and usually takes most everything off, but I like to just make sure it kind of grabs, and these shop towels are good at grabbing any grease or anything like that. Next is the clutch, which is over here. And same thing, we want to hit that with a little brake cleaner as well. Make sure it's good and clean on both sides. Okay, so on the clutch plate, you want to put the tool in. You want to make sure this spring plate is facing out. That's the one that kind of pokes out, little nuts on the outside here. On the other side, if you look at it, it's actually more flat. Whereas I have something to grab there, I don't have anything I could grab onto on that side. So I'm going to throw that in. With that sitting on there, I'm going to go ahead and get the pressure plate ready. Again, hit it with some brake cleaner and clean it off real good. And then I'll bolt that on. All right, got the pressure plate on. Just kind of cinched up all of these 6 bolts finger tight. I'm gonna go through and tighten them a little bit at a time in a star pattern. Thank you. Kind of delivery there. So the reason I do this, or that you should do this, is each of these fingers is kind of moves as you tighten this in. These fingers are going to start pulling out, and you want to keep them even. Keeps it, it gets this thing on nice and even, flat against that clutch plate, which is very important. So once you get them pretty much to being flat against the clutch plate, then we're going to bust out our torque wrench and tighten these down to 35 foot-pounds on each. Okay, we're pretty close there, so I'm going to go ahead and put these to torque. Oops, wrong one. Nope. It's this one. And one more time just to be on the safe side. And once those are all torqued down, you can pull the tool, and then you want to make sure that these fingers are sitting out just even with each other all the way around. All right, with the pressure plate, clutch, and flywheel all mounted, now I need to put the bell housing on and take one more measurement. All right, with the bell housing on with just a couple of bolts, and they're just tightened down to not to torque or anything, they're just tightened down a little bit. You want to take and put a straight edge ruler on the end of those teeth on the pressure plate, and then a straight edge across the bell housing, and with the ruler measure and we're doing inches, which is on the bottom on this one. That measurement there to that straight edge is 3 5/8. Yeah, 3 5/8. And then you take it over here, and I've already done my measurements, so I'm just going to explain this real quick. And compress the slave cylinder with the straight edge. And I'm trying to do this one-handed here. Compress the master cylinder with the slave cylinder with the straight edge, and then you're going to take a measurement from the face of the transmission to where that compresses with the straight edge, and make sure, and what you do is you subtract that number from that number, and you should have somewhere between 1/8 and 3/8. And if it's outside of that, there's spacers that you can get for the bell housing, or spacers that you can get or take out on the slave cylinder. Mine's well within spec at 1/4 inch, so I'm gonna just move on to the next step. Next step in my case was to remove the bell housing from the engine and mount it just with a couple bolts onto the transmission to pull it flush, make it line up. And if you like, before that, you want to put this little plate on. This is where this is a block off plate. If you have a mechanical clutch, your fork is going to go through there. But since we just have the hydraulic clutch, we're going to put a hydraulic line through here. So that's what we're doing, is getting this lined up. We're going to put the hydraulic line on right here. Get everything kind of lined up how it's supposed to be, and then we're gonna pull that off together, it looks like, and then mount it. Okay, so I got the hydraulic line fed through the plate here. You can see there's the steel braided line. You got the bleeder pointing down, comes through, and then it's threaded into the throwout bearing. And then what I'm doing next is pulling these bolts back here, pulling the bell housing with the slave cylinder and everything, and the line attached, and we're going to mount it over there. So I kind of pieced my videos together, and been super busy lately. I finally got around to finishing up putting together the tranny to the engine. So what I did, I think in the last video that I recorded, which will all be spliced in together as one video, is I said that we were going to take the bell housing and slave cylinder all together, and then put that on, and then put the tranny on. But what I found was that the slave cylinder wanted to kind of fall out of the bell housing, and then putting the tranny on was a pain in the ass. So I ended up putting tranny onto the bell housing, and then bolting it all up to the engine with the bell housing there, and that worked out really well. I ended up sliding it in just as straight as possible here, right on the ground essentially. I did have to lift the engine a little bit, but got it in there, and then I ended up putting 2 bolts in, and then just cinching those up to kind of pull it in the rest of the way. It was like just like not even an 1/8 of an inch. Did that, and then tightened up all the bolts, torqued everything down, double checked it, and now we're ready to test fit, and that will be my next set of videos.